Well, welcome back. And my guest is Dr. Roger Rhoades, and he is a family therapist. And we're always grateful to have him here because he has a lot of what I call good old common sense to share with people. And we're talking about prevention.
Yes.
And the way you can help your kids, your loved ones, and even yourself from getting involved in something that brings unhappiness is to know ahead of time. This isn't going to lead you anyplace.
Well, the big thing is if you give people in your life, your family, your friends, your church, your social, access to your life. I love that phrase, open book. My life's an open book. Well, you don't hear, Peggy, many people whose lives are an open book getting in trouble. It's in those times when they weren't monitored, they weren't allowing people to check up on them, and they weren't setting up.
The opportunity was there.
Yeah, I'll tell you a great example of this. A great example of what I'm talking about. Billy Graham. Now, have you ever heard of Billy Graham being in a sex scandal?
Heavens, no.
Oh, but didn't he grow up around people who were having sex scandals all around him?
Yes.
Well, how come Billy didn't and they did? Well, what you notice is Billy had set up a system. He chose to be an open book. I'm never going to be in a room with a female anywhere.
Alone.
Not in an elevator, not in a hotel room, not at a meeting, nowhere. There's always going to be somebody there if there's a woman. And the number one person he had who was there was Ruth. Ruth's going to be there if there's going to be a woman there. If Ruth can't be there, I'm not going to have the meeting. I'm not going to meet him. Well,
and Ruth was his wife.
Yes, I'm sorry. Ruth was his wife. But see, he was willing to be monitored. He was willing to be open. He set a structure up. If we would do that ahead of time with our kids, with our marriage, with our life, I tell you, by the time it's over, you're going to be, the one word that's going to come out of that, Peggy, is whew, whoosh, man. It's just going to be, wow. But when you look at some of the people looking back going, man, that was a stupid mistake. I cannot believe I did that. I couldn't believe. It didn't come upon them unaware. You can see a track. Why didn't you stop it at step one? Well, I wasn't monitoring it. How about step two? Well, no, I just kind of looked the other way. Step three. Well, at that point, it's got momentum. And before you know it, you know, how many people talk about, as a therapist, I hear people who talk about affairs. And they didn't just meet somebody and then go to a hotel room. Like I say, they weren't walking down the street and a wind blew them into the Holiday Inn. I've never heard that story. What happened was they met the person, they talked to the person, they got familiar with the person, they went out and had a snack, they did, and little by little, they got a little closer and a little closer.
And they got swept up in something half the time before they even realized it.
Yes, and that's adults.
Well, I mean, we don't start out
kids.
to do something, most people don't start out to do something evil.
Right, because evil is costly. Evil can cost you time, money, and energy. It can ruin your careers. You know, that's one thing with the internet. I heard the other day that I think 10 or more kids were kept, they had been accepted into like Harvard or Yale, one of the big schools, but because they had been inappropriate on the internet and social media, they took those acceptance letters back and they wouldn't let them come to the school. Because they said, a person who operates with this, and the person said, we were just having fun, we were just laying stuff out. So there's consequences. There are consequences to poor actions, you know, and birds of a feather flock together. Let me tell you, evil people run with evil people. Bad situations seem to happen to a group. One of the things you notice if you go to the prisons here is most of the people in prison know each other. They've either related to them or they're friends with them. It's very odd to find somebody who goes into prison, I don't know anybody. I'm here by myself. That's odd. The other side is they all know each other because they all run together. They all do stuff. They're unmonitored. And unmonitored people run together. You know, even back in the day when you went to high school, the kids who smoked cigarettes all hung together. They were all friends. And people who didn't smoke didn't run with those kids. They didn't have anything in common. And it was simply because those kids went somewhere else and lit up cigarettes.
So, all right, now, so prevention.
Yes.
The power to prevent. And we can't prevent sometimes automobile accidents. We can't prevent cancer. Some of the things that come to us.
Those are accidents, Peggy.
But we can prevent situations by looking ahead of time and saying, uh-oh, let that light go on. Stay away from this.
God gives us so many choices. And it's monitoring and holding yourself accountable to your choices. Bad stuff usually doesn't happen over one choice. Bad situations.
That's interesting.
It's amazing. Bad stuff emotionally that happens to people, 20, 30 decisions later is when it happens. There have been a lot of times for people to stop, but they weren't owning the warning signs, the consequences of what they're doing. And they weren't looking. You know, it's interesting how people who get divorced never hang around with people who are in happy marriages. If you see a group of people and all the marriages is happy and they are working together and they're open and they're sharing, and if somebody comes in and does not have a happy marriage, is not open, it isn't long for it, they exit the door. They don't want to be part of that. They'll say, those aren't our kind of people. Our kind of people. See, but birds of a feather flock together. Whoever came up with that genius. And that's all we're saying here is look at the people, look at the kids your kids run around with. Look at the people you run around with. Look at the choices you have and make your life an open book. That is so good. And be suspicious. We want people to have permission to be suspicious. If you think somebody's doing something funky, good. Act like they're doing something funky. Check into it. Is it going to hurt their feelings? Maybe. Too bad. Hurt their feelings. Get them in the middle of their life. Get in the middle of their business. You know, people who are doing right usually don't care that you look. You want to look? Look. You want to look at my life? I don't care if it's
with our kids, and especially our teenagers, it's all right to be monitoring.
Oh, and are they going
and they won't like it sometimes.
No, that's important to say. You are not, your children have a lot of people who can be their friends, but they only have one set of parents.
That's right.
Parenting is an unthankful, hard job. Hard job to do. And it's not about popularity. It's not about being popular. It's about being open. But don't tell your kid to stop smoking while you smoking. Don't tell them to stop drinking while you drinking. Don't tell them to stop doing drugs when you taking drugs. They're watching the big monkeys. Monkey see, monkey do. Monitor you. Say, if I was my child, what would I think of me? Now that I have wisdom over the ages, what do I think of this decision? And when you know that what you're doing is correct and anybody watching it can monitor it, wow, I guarantee you, that is going to play well. And if people took the time and energy to do that, in other words, that's called prevention. That's stuff done ahead of time. You know, it's tough how people meet people at college and get married. Oh, I saw them from across the room and I want to get married. And then 5 years later, they divorce and say, I don't know what happened. I thought I loved that person. And I'm thinking, Well, how much research did you do? How much time did you spend? How much did you get into their lives and how they were brought up? And what were the rules of their family? And did you agree with that? And did you sit down to eat with them and see how they ate? It's those kind of things that could kill a marriage. And it's those type of things that are going to make children blow up. Because they're going to watch you and say, well, you're telling me, but I know you. Mm-hmm. You know, they watch how fast you drive. They watch how you monitor stuff. They watch how you talk to people. And they watch, number one thing children watch is time. How much time do you spend with them? And they might not act like, I don't want you to spend time, how give me some freedom. They say that, but when they're 30, they're going to love you to death. And their kids that they have are going to love you as a grandparent if you'll do that.
Okay. Prevention. We need to be wise and think about what's ahead before we step into something.
Exactly.
Roger, we are out of time. I could sit and talk to you forever. Oh, okay. Dr. Roger Rhoades always gives us good things to think about. Stay happy, and we'll see you next time.